The morning sun crept through the narrow window of the tour bus kitchen, casting long fingers of light across the worn countertop where Maria Gonzalez's hands moved with practiced precision. At 56 years old, her fingers bore the marks of 15 years of loyal service, small burns, calluses, and the slight tremble that came from decades of chopping, stirring, and creating culinary magic in the confined spaces of tour bus kitchens and venue backstages. "Senor Strait likes his eggs over medium, not over easy," she reminded her assistant, a young man named Carlos, who had joined the tour crew just 3 months ago. "And the bacon must be crispy but not burnt. He has a big show tonight at the Bridgestone Arena. He needs proper food, proper energy." Maria's accent remained thick despite her years in America. She had arrived from a small town outside Guadalajara with dreams of opening her own restaurant someday. Life had other plans, as it often does, but she considered herself blessed nonetheless. Cooking for George Strait, El Rey, the king of country music, was an honor she never took for granted. As she prepared the breakfast tray, Maria's thoughts drifted to her daughter, Elena. The envelope had arrived yesterday, thick and promising, bearing the emblem of Vanderbilt University. Maria had wept when Elena called with the news of her acceptance, the first Gonzalez to attend college, the culmination of all Maria's sacrifice and hard work. "You watching the time, Maria?" called out Dave, the tour manager, poking his head into the kitchen area. "George is up early today, wants breakfast in 15. "It will be perfect, don't worry," Maria assured him with a confident nod, turning back to prepare the fresh salsa that George had grown to love over the years. Folks, watching George Strait perform his hits on stage, rarely thought about the woman who ensured he was well fed and cared for. The woman who knew that before big shows, he preferred light proteins and complex carbohydrates, who remembered how he liked a slice of her homemade tres leches cake after particularly successful performances, who had nursed him through a terrible bout of food poisoning in Denver 5 years ago when no one else could get him to eat. If you're enjoying this story, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Where are you watching from today? Your support means everything to our community of storytellers. "Maria, this is perfect as always," George said 40 minutes later as he finished the last bite of his breakfast. Though famously private and often a man of few words, he always made time to thank Maria. Unlike some celebrities she had heard about from other chefs in the industry, George Strait had always treated her with respect. He remembered her birthday each year with a card and bonus. He asked about her children by name. When her husband Miguel died 8 years ago, George had paid for the funeral and given Maria time to grieve, keeping her position waiting. "Thank you, Mr. Strait. Is there anything special you want for lunch?" she asked, gathering his empty plates. George shook his head. "Whatever you make will be fine, Maria. You know what I like." He paused, looking up from his tour schedule. "How's Elena doing? Heard anything from those college applications yet?" Maria couldn't help the proud smile that spread across her face. "Yes, sir. She got accepted to Vanderbilt yesterday, full academic scholarship." George's face lit up with genuine pleasure. "That's fantastic. I always said that girl was smart as a whip. You must be so proud." "I am. So proud I could burst," Maria admitted, her eyes misting slightly. "She works so hard. 2 jobs plus school. Now all her dreams coming true." "She gets that work ethic from her mother," George said with a nod. Maria ducked her head at the compliment and busied herself with clearing the dishes. "The graduation is next month. She wants to look special, you know. I've been saving to buy her a nice dress for the ceremony." "Well, you make sure she gets something beautiful," George said. "She deserves it." Later that afternoon, as the crew prepared for the evening's concert, Maria found herself with a rare few hours of freedom. The caterers would handle the pre-show meal for the band and crew, and she wasn't needed back until after the show to prepare George's post-performance snack. looking at the crisp $500 bills in her wallet. Money she had been setting aside for months, $10 here, $20 there. Maria made a decision. Nashville's downtown shopping district was just a short bus ride away, and the southern luxury boutique she had seen advertised in magazines might have the perfect dress for Elena's big day. The city streets hummed with energy as Maria made her way through the crowds of tourists and locals. Country music spilled from the honky-tonks, and the air smelled of barbecue and fried food. Nashville had always intimidated her a little, so different from the rural Texas venues and small Midwestern towns where the tour often played. But today, with her precious savings and a mission to fulfill, Maria walked with purpose. Southern luxury stood out among the other shops with its elegant facade and tasteful window displays. Mannequins dressed in flowing gowns and sophisticated cocktail dresses seemed to stare down at the sidewalk with blank, judging eyes. Maria hesitated for just a moment before squaring her shoulders and pushing open the heavy glass door. The interior was hushed and cool, a stark contrast to the lively street outside. Soft, classical music played overhead, and the smell of an expensive perfume hung in the air. Racks of clothing in neutral colors lined the walls, each item spaced far from the next, as if to emphasize its uniqueness and value. Maria felt immediately out of place in her practical jeans, comfortable shoes, and the tour jacket she had received as a Christmas gift from the crew. She clutched her worn leather purse a little tighter and reminded herself why she was here. Eleanor deserved this. Her beautiful, brilliant daughter deserved to walk across that graduation stage looking like the Queen Maria knew her to be. "Can I help you?" The voice came from behind, making Maria turn quickly. The woman who stood there was perhaps 40, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair, immaculate makeup, and clothes that screamed expensive taste. Her name tag read, Veronica Whitfield, manager. "Yes, please," Maria said, her accent thickening as it always did when she felt nervous. "I look for dress for my daughter. She graduates next month from high school, going to Vanderbilt in fall." Veronica's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly, her gaze traveling from Maria's face down to her practical shoes and back up again. Her smile remained fixed, but something in her eyes changed, cooled and hardened. "I see," she said, her voice taking on the slow, over-enunciated quality people sometimes used when speaking to someone they assumed couldn't understand English well. "And what sort of budget did you have in mind for this dress?" Maria smiled, proudly. "I saved $500. Want something very special." At the mention of the sum, Veronica's smile tightened. A quiet snort of amusement came from another sales associate who was pretending to rearrange a nearby display of clutch purses. "Oh, my dear," Veronica said, her voice rising just enough to ensure others in the store could hear. "I'm afraid we don't have anything in that range. Our dresses start at $2,000. This is a luxury boutique." Maria's cheeks burned. "Perhaps you have sale? Discount rack?" she persisted, her fingers nervously twisting the strap of her purse. Several patrons had turned to watch the interaction now, their expressions ranging from disinterest to barely concealed amusement. One woman in expensive yoga wear whispered something to her companion, and they both suppressed smiles. "We don't do discount racks here," Veronica said, making quotation marks in the air with her fingers. "Perhaps you would be more comfortable. At the mall across town, they have plenty of affordable options." The way she said affordable made it sound like a dirty word. Maria felt as though the floor was tilting beneath her feet. She had been so excited to buy this dress, had imagined Elena's face lighting up when she saw it. Now she stood humiliated, the subject of whispers and stares. "I just want nice dress for my daughter," Maria said, her voice growing smaller. "She works so hard, first in family to go to college." "That's very commendable," Veronica said with artificial sweetness, placing a hand on Maria's elbow and beginning to guide her toward the door. "But really, We don't want to waste your time showing you things that are clearly out of your price range. You wouldn't even be able to appreciate the quality of our merchandise." Maria reached into her purse and pulled out the small school photograph of Elena in her wallet. "My daughter, she is beautiful, smart too, full scholarship." Veronica barely glanced at the photo. "I'm sure she's lovely, but is there a problem here?" The deep, gentle voice with its distinctive Texas drawl caused every head in the boutique to turn. George Strait stood just inside the entrance, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt, his signature cowboy hat in his hands. He had entered so quietly that no one had noticed him, a skill he had perfected after decades of fame. Veronica's eyes widened in recognition, her hand dropping away from Maria's elbow as if it had suddenly burned her. "Mr. Strait, what an honor to have you in our establishment. Are you looking for something for Mrs. Strait today? I'd be happy to—" "Maria?" George said, ignoring Veronica completely and looking at his chef with concern. "Everything all right?" Maria stood frozen, mortification washing over her. In 15 years, she had maintained a professional distance, never intruding on George's personal time away from the tour. And now, here he was, witnessing her humiliation. "Mr. Strait," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena's graduation dress. I should go." Understanding dawned on George's face as he took in the scene. The dismissive manager, the onlooking customers, Maria's hunched shoulders and reddened face. His normally gentle expression hardened just slightly, a subtle change that those who knew him recognized as anger. "Maria has worked for me for 15 years, he said, his voice mild, but carrying the quiet authority that had made him a legend both on and off the stage. "She's looking for a graduation dress for her daughter. I'm sure you folks can help with that, can't you?" Veronica's entire demeanor transformed instantly. "Of course, Mr. Strait. We would be absolutely delighted to help Maria find something perfect." She turned to Maria with a brilliant smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let me show you our selection of evening wear. We can certainly find something within your budget." "I think Maria can make her own decisions about what's right for her daughter," George said. He turned to Maria. "Take your time, find something Elena will love. I'll be looking for a gift for Norma myself." As George moved toward another section of the store, customers began to whisper excitedly, several surreptitiously taking photos with their phones. The other sales associates suddenly found reasons to hover nearby, offering assistance and pulling dresses they thought might be suitable. Maria stood rooted to the spot, emotions warring within her. Humiliation at being the center of attention, gratitude for George's intervention, and lingering anger at how she had been treated before he arrived, as if she were somehow less worthy, less human. "Perhaps you'd like to see our special collection," Veronica suggested, her voice honey-sweet now. "We have some lovely pieces that might work with your budget, especially with our unexpected sale today." Maria looked at the woman's false smile, then over at George, who was examining a scarf with careful attention, giving her space but remaining present. In that moment, something shifted inside Maria Gonzalez. 15 years of standing in kitchens where she wasn't seen, of being judged by her accent rather than her character, of working twice as hard to be considered half as good. It all crystallized into a quiet, firm dignity. "No, thank you," she said clearly, her accent still present but her English perfect. "I don't think I will find what I'm looking for here after all." She turned and walked toward the door, back straight and head held high. As she passed George, she paused. "Thank you, Mr. Strait, but Eleanor and I will shop somewhere else, somewhere that would have helped us both before they knew I worked for you." George studied her face for a moment, then nodded with what looked like respect. "I think that's a wise decision, Maria. Need a ride back to the venue?" The bell above the door chimed as they left together, leaving Veronica and the staff of Southern luxury in stunned silence. What they couldn't know was that the conversation continuing outside would set in motion events that would change Maria's life forever and teach Nashville a lesson about judging people that no one who witnessed it would ever forget. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows down the street as Maria and George walked side by side. For the first time in 15 years, Maria found herself without words in her employer's presence. Shame and pride battled within her. "I'm sorry you had to see that, Mr. Strait," she finally said. "I should have known better than to come to a place like this." George stopped walking and turned to face her. "No, Maria. They should have known better than to treat any person that way." His voice was quiet but firm. "Where were you planning to go next to look for Elena's dress?" Maria looked up at him, surprised by the question. "I don't know. Perhaps the department store at the mall, like she suggested." George checked his watch. "We've got 3 hours." "Before I need to be back for sound check. That should be plenty of time to find something perfect, don't you think?" Maria stared at George Strait, the king of country music, wondering if she had misheard him. "You want to help me shop for Elena's dress?" "Why not?" George said with a casual shrug that belied the determination in his eyes. "I've got some time, and you've spent 15 years making sure I eat right before every show. Least I can do is help you find something nice for your daughter." They ended up at Jasmine's Boutique, a small shop 3 blocks away that Maria had noticed on her walk downtown. Unlike Southern Luxury's intimidating facade, Jasmine's had colorful window displays and a sign that read, "Elegant fashions for every budget." The moment they entered, a middle-aged woman with warm brown skin and a riot of black curls looked up from behind the counter. Her eyes widened momentarily at the sight of George Strait, but her professional demeanor quickly took over. "Welcome to Jasmine's. I'm Jasmine Montgomery, the owner. How can I help you folks today?" Her voice carried a soft southern lilt, but her smile was genuine. "My friend Maria here is looking for a graduation dress for her daughter," George explained. "Something special but not over the top. The young lady's headed to Vanderbilt in the fall." "Vanderbilt! Congratulations to your daughter," Jasmine said, focusing her attention on Maria rather than the celebrity in her shop. "Do you have a photo of her? That would help me get a sense of her style and coloring." Maria pulled out Elena's picture from her wallet, her hands still trembling slightly from the earlier encounter. "This is my Elena. She is 18. Very studious, very serious, but I want her to feel beautiful on her special day." Jasmine studied the photo with genuine interest. "She's gorgeous, those cheekbones, those eyes, and that smile, it lights up her whole face." She handed the photo back to Maria. "Let's find something that will make her shine even brighter. What's your budget?" $500, Maria said, bracing herself for another rejection. "Perfect," Jasmine replied without missing a beat. "I have several lovely options in that range. Follow me." As Jasmine led Maria through the store, pulling dresses in various styles, George trailed behind, occasionally offering a comment but mostly observing. Maria couldn't help but notice how different this experience felt, being treated with respect, having her opinions valued. "Try this midnight blue," Jasmine suggested, holding up a knee-length dress with a modest neckline and delicate beading. "It would be stunning with her complexion. Or this one," she continued, showing a forest green A-line dress with cap sleeves. "Very elegant but still youthful." They settled on 5 dresses for consideration. Jasmine insisted that Maria take photos of each to show Elena later, arranging them carefully on mannequins and helping Maria get the best angle with her phone. After careful deliberation, Maria chose the midnight blue dress, which at $480 fit perfectly within her budget. Jasmine carefully boxed it, adding tissue paper and a handwritten note congratulating Elena. "Thank you," Maria said as she paid, pride evident in her voice. "This is perfect. Elena will look like a princess." "She already is a princess," George commented quietly. "Just like her mama is a queen in her kitchen." As Jasmine rang up the purchase, she hesitated, glancing at George. "Mr. Strait, I don't mean to impose, but my daughter Cassie is your biggest fan. Would it be possible?" George smiled. "You have something you'd like me to sign?" Jasmine reached under the counter and pulled out a well-loved copy of George's Oceanfront Property album. "This was the first record I ever bought with my own money." Cassie grew up listening to it. As George signed the album with a personal message, Maria watched the interaction. There was no difference in how George treated Jasmine compared to how he treated the wealthy patrons who paid hundreds for VIP meet and greets at his shows. The same genuine smile, the same respectful attention, the same kindness. This was why she had stayed in his employment for 15 years, Maria realized. Not just for the steady paycheck, but because George Strait lived the values his songs proclaimed: integrity, humility, and treating everyone with dignity. Leaving Jasmine's with the precious dress box tucked under her arm, Maria found herself relaxing for the first time since the Southern Luxury incident. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Strait. I should get back to the venue to prepare your post-show meal." "We've got time for coffee first," George said, nodding toward a small cafe across the street. "And I think after 15 years, you could call me George when we're not working." Seated in a quiet corner of the cafe with steaming cups before, Maria found herself in the strange position of having George Strait's undivided attention. In all their years working together, they had never sat down like this, just to talk. "I don't think I've ever properly thanked you, Maria," George said after they had ordered. "Thanked me? For what? I just do my job." George shook his head. "For taking care of me and the crew all these years. For the way you nursed me through that awful food poisoning in Denver when I was too sick to perform. For remembering that I like your homemade salsa with breakfast before big shows, and tres leches cake when we've had a good night." Maria felt her cheeks warm at his words. "It's nothing special. Just my job." "It is special," George insisted. "You've made living on the road feel a little bit like home. That matters. Especially when you're missing your family." Maria nodded, understanding all too well. "It is hard, being away from the children. But the money is good, and they have a better life because of it." "Tell me about them," George said, settling back in his chair. "I know Elena is the scholar, but what about your boys?" For the next half hour, Maria found herself talking about her children. Elena, with her dreams of becoming a doctor, Miguel Jr., who was finishing his apprenticeship as an electrician, and young Thomas, who at 16 was already showing talent as a soccer player. "They are my life," she concluded simply. "Everything I do for them." George nodded thoughtfully. "You remind me of my own mother. She had that same dedication." He paused, stirring his coffee. "What happened back there, at that boutique? That wasn't right, Maria." Maria looked down at her cup. "It happens. Not everyone sees past my accent or my job. Still doesn't make it right." George's jaw tightened slightly. "You know, I've been thinking, Elena's going to need more than just a pretty dress for college. Books, supplies, all that stuff adds up." "We will manage," Maria said firmly. "Elena has her scholarship and I have been saving." "I know you will," George agreed. "But I'd like to help if you'll let me. Consider it 15 years of Christmas. Bonuses all at once." Maria's eyes widened. "That is very generous, Mr. Strait, George, but not necessary. We are not charity cases." "It's not charity, Maria. It's investing in someone's future, just like someone invested in mine once." George's eyes took on a faraway look. "Did I ever tell you about my first guitar? I was a broke kid with big dreams and not much else. My father scraped together money. He couldn't really spare to buy me that guitar. Said he was investing in my future." He refocused on Maria. "Sometimes people just need someone to believe in them. Your Elena's got the brains and the drive. Let me help make the road a little smoother for her." Before Maria could respond, George's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and sighed. "Dave's looking for me. Sound check in 45 minutes." He stood, leaving money on the table for their coffees. "Think about what I said, Maria. No pressure." "But the offer stands." As they walked back toward the venue, Maria's mind was swimming. The day had been a roller coaster, from the humiliation at Southern Luxury to George's unexpected kindness, and now this offer of financial help for Elena. It was almost too much to process. "I should tell you," George said as they approached. "The arena. I've been thinking about making some changes, cutting back on touring next year." Maria felt a flutter of panic. After 15 years, the prospect of losing her job was terrifying. "Oh, retirement?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. George chuckled, not quite ready for the rocking chair yet. "Just thinking about spending more time at home, maybe exploring some other business interests." He glanced at her. "One idea I've been tossing around is opening a small restaurant. Nothing fancy, just good, honest food, the kind you make." Maria stopped walking. "A restaurant? It's just an idea right now," George said. "But if I do it, I'd want someone who knows food running the kitchen, someone I trust." The implication hung in the air between them. Maria felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet for the second time that day. I would need to think about that. My family is in Texas." "Of course," George nodded. "Like I said, just an idea right now. But sometimes life throws opportunities our way when we least expect them." He tipped his hat slightly. "See you after the show, Maria." Alone in the venue's kitchen an hour later, Maria moved through her familiar routines, preparing George's favorite post-concert snack of grilled chicken quesadillas with her special salsa and guacamole. Her hands worked automatically while her mind raced with the day's events and possibilities. A restaurant, a real kitchen, not the cramped quarters of tour buses and venues, but a place where she could truly create. It had been her dream once, before life had taken her down a different path. Was it possible that at 56 she might get a second chance at that dream? And what about Elena? George's offer to help with her education expenses would certainly ease the financial burden. But Maria had always prided herself on providing for her children through her own hard work. "Something smells amazing in here," said a female voice, interrupting Maria's thoughts. Norma Strait, George's wife of over 40 years, stood in the doorway, elegant in a simple black dress and boots, with her silver-streaked dark hair pulled back. Norma had always been kind to Maria, though their interactions were limited to the occasions when she joined George on tour. "Mrs. Strait, I didn't know you were coming to the show tonight," Maria said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thought I'd surprise George," Norma said with a warm smile. "And please, after all these years, call me Norma." She moved into the kitchen, inhaling appreciatively. "George tells me you've had quite a day." Maria froze. "He told you about the store?" Norma nodded, her expression serious. "Among other things. Mind if I sit for a minute?" Maria gestured to the small table in the corner where she sometimes ate her own meals. "Please." Norma settled into a chair, watching as Maria continued her preparations. "George thinks the world of you, you know. Says your cooking is the best part of being on tour." "He's too kind," Maria murmured, focusing on slicing avocados for the guacamole. "George is many things, but he's not one to exaggerate," Norma said. "Especially about food." She paused. "He also told me about his restaurant idea." Maria's knife stilled. "It was just talk, I think. With George, ideas have a way of becoming reality once he sets his mind to them," Norma said. "He's serious about cutting back on touring. He misses home. Our grandkids are growing up too fast, and he's interested in new challenges." She leaned forward slightly. "The restaurant idea isn't new. He's been talking about it for almost a year. Now, has a property picked out and everything just outside Nashville. Maria turned to look at Norma, surprise evident on her face. Really? He didn't say, "That's George for you. Keeps things close to the vest until he's ready." Norma smiled. "But he's been clear about one thing from the start. He'd only do it if you were willing to run the kitchen." Maria set down her knife, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," Norma assured her. "There's time to think about it, talk to your children, figure out what's best for your family." She rose from the table. "I just wanted you to know that the offer is genuine. You've taken good care of my husband for 15 years, Maria. Made sure he ate right when I couldn't be there to do it myself. That means something to both of us." As Norma left, Maria stood motionless in the kitchen, her mind spinning with possibilities she had never dared to consider before. A restaurant, a real kitchen of her own, a chance to create food that people would come specifically to eat, not just fuel for a touring crew. And Elena at Vanderbilt, becoming a doctor, Miguel Jr. and Thomas perhaps joining her in Nashville eventually. A new life, a second chance. The sound of cheering from the arena jolted Maria back to the present. The concert was ending. Soon, George would return, hungry after performing for thousands of adoring fans. Whatever the future might hold, right now, she had quesadillas to finish. As she worked, Maria found herself humming one of George's most famous songs, Amarillo. By morning, a ballad about a rodeo cowboy who loses everything but keeps moving forward with hope. It seemed fitting somehow, this song about resilience and new dawns after dark nights. Outside, the final notes of George's encore faded away, and the roar of the crowd swelled to fill the night. Somewhere in that venue, people from all walks of life were united in their love for the music, in their appreciation for the stories George Strait had been telling them for decades. Stories of love and loss, of dignity and perseverance. Stories, Maria realized with a start, not so different from her own. The backstage area bustled with activity as crew members dismantled equipment and loaded cases onto trucks. Amid the controlled chaos, Maria stood in the green room, arranging George's post-show meal on a small table. The quesadillas were perfectly golden, the guacamole sprinkled with just the right amount of cilantro, exactly as he preferred. "Something smells amazing, Dave," the tour manager said as he passed by. "You outdid yourself tonight, Maria." Maria nodded her thanks, adjusting the napkins one final time. These small rituals gave her comfort, knowing that no matter how big the arena or how famous the performer, good food made with care still mattered. Voices in the hallway announced George's approach. He entered with Norma at his side, his face still slightly flushed from the performance, his eyes bright with the unique energy that came from connecting with thousands of fans. "There she is," George said warmly. "Maria, that was one of the best shows we've had this tour. Must have been that perfect breakfast you made this morning." Maria smiled, gesturing to the waiting food. "You must be hungry. I made your favorites." As George and Norma settled at the table, Maria prepared to leave as she always did, giving them privacy. But George looked up and patted the empty chair. "Join us, Maria. I want to hear more about Elena's plans for Vanderbilt." Hesitantly, Maria sat down, feeling strangely out of place, despite having worked in George's presence for so many years. This crossing of boundaries, from employee to something more like a friend, was unfamiliar territory. For the next 30 minutes, as George ate with obvious enjoyment, the conversation flowed naturally. They discussed Elena's planned pre-med studies, Norma's recent visit with their grandchildren, and the remaining dates on the tour schedule. No mention was made of the restaurant idea, for which Maria was grateful. She needed time to process that possibility. "I almost forgot," George said, reaching into his pocket. "Got you something today?" He slid a small jewelry box across the table to Maria, who stared at it in surprise. "Go on, open it," Norma encouraged. Inside was a silver pendant on a delicate chain, a small chef's hat with a tiny diamond embedded in its center. "I saw it at a shop while you were looking at." "A dress is for Eleanor," George explained. "Thought it might be a nice way to say thank you for 15 years of keeping me well-fed and healthy on the road." Maria touched the pendant with trembling fingers. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "But you've already done so much today." "Consider it an early birthday present," George said. "Norma reminded me it's coming up next month." The gesture touched Maria deeply, not just the gift itself, but the fact that they remembered her birthday, that they had been thinking of her. "Thank you," she said simply, blinking back tears. "I will treasure it." Later that night, alone in her small hotel room, Maria called her daughter. It was late, but Elena was a night owl, especially now during final exams. "Mama?" Elena's voice came through, sounding alert despite the hour. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is wonderful, mija," Maria replied, switching to Spanish as she always did with her children. She recounted the day's events, the humiliation at Southern Luxury, George's unexpected appearance, and the perfect dress they had found at Jasmine's boutique. "Wait, George Strait went shopping with you?" Elena's voice rose in disbelief. "The George Strait you work for?" Maria laughed at her daughter's reaction. "See, the very same. He was very kind." "That's wow, Mama. Just wow." Maria hesitated, then added, He offered to help with your college expenses, and he mentioned something about opening a restaurant in Nashville. Said he would want me to run the kitchen." Silence stretched across the phone line for a moment. "Mama, that's incredible. Did you say yes?" "I said I needed to think about it. To talk with you and your brothers." Maria fingered the silver pendant around her neck. "It would mean moving to Nashville, being far from you all. But I'll be at Vanderbilt," Elena pointed out. "We'd be in the same city for once." "Yes, but your brothers would still be in Texas. Miguel is talking about moving to Atlanta for that electrical company job," Elena said. "And Thomas will be wherever his soccer takes him in a few years. Mama, this could be your dream, your own restaurant kitchen." Maria smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. Elena had been just 6 years old when Maria had first taken the job with George Strait's tour, but she still remembered her mother's original dream of owning a restaurant. "It's not exactly my own restaurant," Maria clarified. "It would be his." "But your kitchen," Elena persisted. "Your food, your recipes. After all these years of cooking in those tiny tour bus kitchens, don't you want a real space?" The question lingered in Maria's mind long after she and Elena had said their goodnights. Did she want this? Was she brave enough to start over at 56? To leave the security of the job she had known for 15 years for something new and uncertain? Sleep came fitfully. Her dreams filled with commercial kitchens, graduation ceremonies, and the memory of Veronica Whitfield's dismissive expression at Southern Luxury. The next morning, Maria arrived early at the tour bus, determined to prepare a special breakfast. If she was going to consider George's offer seriously, she wanted to remind him, and perhaps herself, of exactly what her cooking brought to the table. She prepared chilaquiles with her signature red sauce, perfectly poached eggs, and fresh fruit sprinkled with tagine. The smells of toasted corn tortillas and simmering chilies filled the small kitchen space, drawing appreciative comments from crew members as they passed by. George appeared just as she was putting the finishing touches on the plates. "Something smells incredible," he said, settling at the small table. "You're spoiling me, Maria." "Just doing my job, Mr. Strait," she replied, setting the plate before him. "Back to Mr. Strait today, are we?" he asked with a knowing smile. Maria blushed slightly. "Old habits. George." He took a bite of the chilaquiles and closed his eyes in appreciation. This is exactly why I want you for that restaurant, he said after swallowing. Food that makes people close their eyes when they taste it, that's special. Maria sat down across from him, her hands folded in her lap. I've been thinking about your offer. Both offers, actually. George nodded, continuing to eat, but giving her his full attention. For Elena's education, I'm very grateful. But I cannot accept such a large gift. I understand, George said, though he looked disappointed. Your pride is one of the things I admire about you, Maria. But, Maria continued, if you were serious about a business loan for her education, something I could repay over time, that would be different. George's expression brightened. Absolutely. We can arrange that. However makes you comfortable. Maria took a deep breath. And about the restaurant. Yes. I would like to know more. What you envision, what my role would be exactly, before I can decide. George set down his fork, giving Maria his complete attention. Fair enough. Here's what I'm thinking. A place that serves real food. Nothing pretentious, nothing fancy for the sake of being fancy. Good steaks, of course, but also dishes with heart. Your chilaquiles, your enchiladas, those amazing sopapillas you make sometimes. His eyes took on a faraway look as he continued. I want a place where families feel welcome, where the food tells a story. Honest food for honest people. And I want you in charge of that kitchen, with the freedom to create your own menu, hire your own staff. And ownership? Maria asked quietly. Would I just be an employee? George looked slightly surprised at the question. I hadn't thought about it, to be honest, but I'm open to discussing partnership terms if that's what you're asking. Maria nodded, processing this. I would need to think about it more. We'll talk to my family. Of course, George agreed. We've got 3 more weeks on this tour leg. No rush to decide. The conversation shifted to the day's schedule, but Maria's mind remained fixed on the possibilities opening before her. Partnership in a restaurant. A chance for Elena to attend Vanderbilt without crushing debt. A new chapter in Nashville, the heart of country music. Later that day, as the tour bus rolled toward the next city, Maria's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Curious, she opened it. Maria, this is Jasmine from the boutique. Hope you don't mind me texting. Got your number. From George's assistant. Wanted to let you know Southern Luxury is getting slammed on social media. Someone overheard what happened yesterday and posted about it. Just thought you should know. P.S. That blue dress is going to look amazing on your daughter. Maria stared at the message in shock. Social media. She didn't even have accounts on those platforms. What exactly was happening? She quickly called Elena, who was far more versed in such matters. Oh yeah, it's everywhere, Mama, Elena confirmed. Someone posted about how Veronica treated you and how George Strait stood up for you. It's gone viral. People are leaving 1-star reviews for Southern Luxury and sharing stories about times they were discriminated against in fancy stores. Dios mío, Maria murmured. I never wanted that. You didn't do anything wrong, Elena insisted. They did, and now they're facing consequences. The news left Maria feeling unsettled. On one hand, Veronica had been intentionally cruel and deserved to be called out for her behavior. On the other hand, Maria had never sought to harm anyone's livelihood, even someone who had humiliated her. At the next stop, a small city in Alabama, Maria was surprised when Dave, the tour manager, approached her with an unusual request. Got a woman named Veronica Whitfield calling non-stop for you, he said, looking puzzled. Says it's urgent. Something about a Southern Luxury boutique? Maria felt her stomach tighten. What does she want? Dave shrugged. Wouldn't say. Just that she needs to speak with you directly. Want me to tell her to buzz off? After a moment's hesitation, Maria shook her head. No, I'll talk to her. With Dave's phone in hand, Maria stepped outside the venue for privacy. "Hello? Ms. Gonzalez?" Veronica's voice sounded nothing like the condescending tone she had used in the boutique. Now it was strained, almost desperate. "Thank you for taking my call. I need to apologize for how I treated you yesterday." "I see," Maria said neutrally. "Why now?" A brief pause. "Well, to be honest, the store is in trouble. The owner received hundreds of complaints overnight. We've had people cancel orders. Someone even threw an egg at our window this morning." So the apology wasn't genuine, just damage control. Maria felt a flash of disappointment but not surprise. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said carefully, "but I don't see how I can help you. If you could just maybe post something saying you accept my apology, or that you don't hold it against the store. The owner is threatening to fire me, and I can't lose this job. I have bills, a mortgage." The irony wasn't lost on Maria. Yesterday, Veronica hadn't cared about Maria's circumstances or struggles. Today, she wanted understanding for her own. "I don't even have social media accounts," Maria said, "and I didn't ask anyone to post about what happened." "Please," Veronica's voice cracked slightly. "I made a terrible mistake. I know that now." Maria thought about her own children, about the times in her life when she had needed second chances. "I cannot control what others say online," she said finally. "But if you are truly sorry, perhaps you should think about how you treat people, all people, going forward." "I will, I promise," Veronica said quickly. "Thank you for even talking to me. Most people wouldn't have taken my call." After hanging up, Maria stood for a long moment in the afternoon sun, reflecting on the conversation. Had Veronica truly learned anything, or was she simply trying to save her job? And did her intentions even matter if the outcome was that she might treat the next Maria Gonzalez with more respect? Lost in thought, she didn't notice George approaching until he spoke. "Everything okay?" Dave said Veronica Whitfield called. Maria nodded. "She wanted me to help stop the social media criticism. Apparently the store is suffering." George's expression was unreadable. "And what did you tell her?" "That I cannot control what others say, but that she should think about how she treats people in the future." A smile spread slowly across George's face. "That's why you're going to be perfect for this restaurant venture, Maria. You understand that how we treat people matters more than anything else." The following week passed in a blur of cities and venues. Maria found herself paying more attention to the restaurants they passed, studying menus and decor with new interest. During a stop in Atlanta, she even asked for a rare evening off to visit a popular Tex-Mex establishment, taking notes on her phone about what worked and what didn't. She also spent hours on the phone with her children, discussing the potential move to Nashville. Miguel Jr. was supportive, pointing out that Atlanta wasn't that far from Nashville if he took the job there. Tomas was more resistant, worried about changing schools for his senior year, but became more enthusiastic when Maria mentioned Nashville's growing soccer scene. And then there was Alina, who couldn't contain her excitement at the possibility of having her mother nearby during her college years. "We could have Sunday dinners together, Mama," she exclaimed during one call, "like a normal family." The idea of Sunday dinners with her daughter warmed Maria's heart. For too many years, their family gatherings had been crammed into her brief breaks from the tour schedule. The prospect of regular time together was powerfully appealing. 10 days after the Southern Luxury incident, while the tour was stopped in Charlotte, Maria received another unexpected communication. This time, an email from a literary agent in New York. "I heard about your experience in Nashville," the email read, "and about your 15 years working with George Strait. I believe there could be significant interest in a cookbook featuring the recipes that have fueled one of country music's greatest careers, particularly with your compelling personal story. If you're interested in discussing this opportunity further, please contact me. Maria read the email 3 times, sure there must be some mistake, a cookbook, her recipes. Who would want such a thing? But as she thought about it, the idea began to take root. The dishes she had created over the years, adapted to tiny kitchens and changing cities, made with love for a man whose music touched millions. Perhaps there was a story worth telling there. That evening, as she prepared George's dinner, Maria found the courage to mention the email. "A cookbook?" George said, looking genuinely intrigued. "That's a great idea. Your food definitely deserves to be shared more widely." "You think people would be interested?" Maria asked uncertainly. "Absolutely," George confirmed, "and it would be perfect timing with the restaurant opening, built-in promotion for both." The casual way he referred to the restaurant, not as a possibility, but as a certainty, didn't escape Maria's notice. Somehow, without her quite realizing it, the idea had shifted from a vague concept to an impending reality in both their minds. Later that night, unable to sleep, Maria sat by the window of her hotel room, looking out at the Charlotte skyline. In her hands, she held Elena's high school graduation photo and the pendant George had given her, symbols of the past and potential futures weighing equally in her palms. 15 years ago, she had taken the job with George Strait's tour out. Of desperation, a widowed mother of 3 with limited options and overwhelming responsibilities. Cooking had been a means to an end, a way to put food on her own family's table. Somewhere along the way, it had become more than that. A craft, an art, a source of pride and identity. Maria Gonzalez wasn't just someone who cooked. She was a chef, George Strait's chef, and perhaps soon a partner in a Nashville restaurant and the author of her own cookbook. "Who would have thought?" she whispered to the night sky, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "From desperation to opportunity, from anonymity to recognition, from being unseen to being valued." The journey hadn't been easy or straightforward, but standing at this crossroads, Maria could finally see all paths leading forward with possibility. The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of the Nashville real estate office, illuminating the property photographs spread across the polished conference table. Maria sat beside George, studying the images of potential restaurant locations while trying to calm the nervous flutter in her stomach. "This one has great foot traffic," the realtor, Jeffrey Bennett, pointed to a location in the Gulch. "Lots of tourists, close to several music venues, but the rent is steep, as you'd expect for the area." George glanced at Maria. "What do you think? Location is important, but we need to make sure the numbers work." Maria appreciated that he consistently used "we" when discussing the restaurant, even though the investment capital was coming primarily from him. It reinforced that this was a partnership, not just employment. "I like the space," she admitted. "Good natural light, high ceilings. But I wonder if we might find something with more character in another neighborhood. Something that feels more authentic." Jeffrey shuffled through his portfolio. "I might have just the thing. There's a property in East Nashville that just came on the market. Former hardware store, built in the 20s. Beautiful brick exterior, needs work inside, but has all the character you could want." He slid a photograph across the table that showed a 2-story brick building with large display windows and an ornate cornice. "East Nashville is becoming quite the food destination," Jeffrey continued. "Still affordable compared to downtown, but drawing serious food enthusiasts." Maria picked up the photo, studying it closely. She could envision it already. Warm lighting, exposed brick walls, tables filled with families and friends sharing meals together. Not pretentious, but welcoming. Exactly what George had described. "Can we see it today?" she asked. 2 hours. Later, Maria stood in the empty space, her footsteps echoing on the worn wooden floors. Sunlight poured through the tall front windows, dust motes dancing in the golden beams. The building had good bones, as her late husband Miguel would have said. The kitchen would go back there, George said, pointing to the rear of the building. We'd need to invest in proper ventilation, new equipment. Maria nodded, already mentally designing the layout. And a small herb garden could go on that flat section of roof, she added. Fresh herbs make all the difference. Jeffrey, sensing their interest, launched into details about zoning, permits, and renovation timelines. Maria listened with half an ear, moving through the space and letting her imagination transform the empty shell into a thriving restaurant. As they prepared to leave, George pulled her aside. You're quiet. What are you thinking? Maria looked around once more, then met his eyes. I'm thinking it feels right, but also that it's a huge undertaking. What if we fail? George's expression was serene. Then we fail. But I don't think we will. You know why? Maria shook her head. Because when people taste your food, they don't just eat. They experience something. That can't fail. He paused. Besides, I've never met anyone who works harder than you do. If anyone can make this succeed, it's Maria Gonzalez. His confidence bolstered her own. Then let's do it. This is the place. Jeffrey beamed at them. Excellent. I'll draw up an offer immediately. As they walked back to George's truck, Maria's phone rang. The screen showed Elena's name. Excuse me, she said, stepping aside to answer. Elena, is everything okay? Her daughter's voice came through, tight with emotion. Mama, I just got another letter from Vanderbilt about my housing assignment. What is it? Is there a problem? They've put me in the expensive dorm, the one with private bathrooms and kitchens, the one I said we couldn't afford. I tried calling housing, but they said all the standard dorms are filled already. Maria felt her chest tighten. The difference in cost was significant, nearly $8,000 more per year. Don't worry, mija. We'll figure something out. I know you're going to say we'll make it work, Elena said, her voice breaking slightly. But I also know about the restaurant plans. You'll need all your savings for that. Maybe I should just go to state school instead. No, Maria said firmly. You've worked too hard to get into Vanderbilt. We are not changing plans now. After reassuring her daughter and ending the call, Maria rejoined George, who was talking with Jeffrey near the truck. Everything okay? George asked, noting her troubled expression. Just a small complication with Elena's housing at Vanderbilt, Maria said, not wanting to burden him with her personal problems. But George knew her too well. What kind of complication? Reluctantly, Maria explained the situation. But it's nothing for you to worry about, she added. I'll handle it. George was quiet for a moment. I have an idea, he said finally, but I'm not sure you'll like it. What is it? I own a small house in Nashville, investment property. It's about 15 minutes from Vanderbilt. 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy. It's been rented out, but the tenants are moving out next month. Elena could live there. Maria stared at him. George, that's too much. I couldn't. She would pay rent, he interrupted. Whatever she would have paid for the standard dorm. It would actually help me to have a reliable tenant, and she'd have more space, more independence. Maria hesitated. It was tempting, but pride held her back. I don't know. Just consider it, George said. Talk it over with Elena. It's a practical solution that benefits everyone. Then, on the drive back to the city center, Maria's mind raced with everything that had happened in the weeks since the Southern luxury incident. The restaurant opportunity, the cookbook offer, which she had tentatively accepted, Elena's housing dilemma. So many changes, so quickly. It's overwhelming sometimes, isn't it? George said, as if reading her thoughts. Maria nodded. Very. I keep asking myself if I'm doing the right thing, taking on so much at once. Change is always scary, George acknowledged. Even good change. But you know what I've learned over the years? Regret is scarier. That evening, in her temporary apartment, another of George's generosities, while she looked for a permanent place in Nashville, Maria video called all three of her children together. She needed their input, their support, as she navigated these major life decisions. Thomas appeared first, his soccer jersey indicating he'd just come from practice. Then Elena joined from her friend's apartment where she was staying for the summer. Miguel Jr. was last, looking tired after a long day at his construction job. "I have news and decisions to make," Maria began. "I wanted all of you to hear at once." She told them about the East Nashville building, about the partnership agreement. She and George were drafting with his lawyers about the tentative opening date 6 months from now. The excitement in her voice was unmistakable as she described her vision for the menu and decor. "It's going to be amazing, Mama," Elena said. "I'm so proud of you." "And the cookbook too," Miguel added. "My friends won't believe my mother is publishing a cookbook with George Strait." Maria smiled at their enthusiasm, then turned to the more difficult topic. "Elena, George has offered his rental house for you to live in while at Vanderbilt. You would pay the same rent you would have paid for the standard dorm." Elena's eyes widened. "Seriously? A whole house?" "It's a small house," Maria clarified. "And yes, seriously. But I wanted to discuss it with all of you. It's another favor, another thing we would owe him." Thomas leaned closer to his camera. "Mama, can I ask something? Why are you so worried about accepting help from this man? He clearly respects you. It's not charity." Maria sighed. "It's complicated, Mijo. When you've spent your life working for someone, being invisible in many ways, it's hard to suddenly be treated as an equal." But you've earned it," Miguel insisted. 15 years of loyalty, of hard work, and now he's investing in you because he believes in you. That's business, not charity." Maria looked at her eldest son, surprised by his maturity. "When did you get so wise?" He grinned. "I had a good teacher." The conversation continued for another hour, her children helping her see the opportunities before her, not as intimidating challenges, but as the natural evolution of her career and life. By the time they said their goodnights, Maria felt more centered, more confident in the path ahead. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Legal documents were signed, making Maria an official partner with a 25% stake in the restaurant. Renovation plans were drawn up and contractors hired. Elena moved into the small house near Vanderbilt and began her pre-med classes with characteristic determination. Throughout it all, George remained a steady presence, offering advice when asked, but always deferring to Maria on matters of menu and kitchen design. It was her domain, and he respected that completely. One evening in late October, 6 weeks into the renovation process, Maria stood in the partially completed restaurant space. The kitchen equipment had been delivered that day, gleaming stainless. Steel appliances, a custom ventilation system, prep tables that seemed to stretch endlessly compared to the cramped tour bus kitchens she had worked in for so long. Her fingers traced the edge of what would be her workstation. Her kitchen, the culmination of a lifetime of cooking, learning, adapting. "Looks like it's coming together nicely." Maria turned to see Veronica Whitfield standing just inside the main entrance, looking somewhat uncomfortable but determined. "Ms. Whitfield," Maria said, surprised. "How did you find me here?" Veronica took a few tentative steps forward. "Nashville's a small town in some ways. Word gets around when George Strait is opening a restaurant." She paused. "I heard you were the chef and partner. Congratulations." "Thank you," Maria said cautiously. "What can I do for you?" Veronica took a deep breath. "I wanted to apologize. Again in person this time. What happened at Southern Luxury? It was inexcusable, and it made me take a hard look at myself." Maria studied the woman before her. Gone was the designer outfit and perfectly styled hair. Today, Veronica wore simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. "I appreciate that," Maria said, "but it wasn't necessary to come here." "For me it was," Veronica insisted. "I lost my job. The owner let me go when the bad publicity didn't die down. At first I was angry. At you, at the situation. But then I realized it was entirely my own doing." Maria didn't know what to say. She had never wished unemployment on the woman despite her behavior. Veronica continued, "Anyway, I'm starting over, taking classes in hospital administration. It's humbling being a student again at 42. She managed a small smile. "I just wanted you to know that what happened, it changed things for me. Made me better, I hope." Maria nodded slowly. "I believe people can change when they choose to." "I also wanted to ask," Veronica hesitated, "I heard you might be hiring staff soon. I've worked as a hostess before, years ago during college. I know it's a long shot, but I thought maybe—" Maria blinked in surprise. The idea of Veronica Whitfield asking her for a job would have been unthinkable just months ago. "We are hiring," Maria confirmed. "But why would you want to work here with me?" Veronica looked directly at her. "Because I want to be part of something authentic, and because I think I have a lot to learn from someone like you, someone who has earned every bit of success through hard work and talent." The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. Maria found herself considering the possibility. It would be a risk, certainly, but perhaps also an opportunity to demonstrate the second chances she believed in. "We'll be conducting interviews next month," Maria said finally. "You can apply then like everyone else. I can't promise anything." Relief washed over Veronica's face. "That's all I'm asking for. A fair chance. Thank you." After Veronica left, Maria continued her inspection of the kitchen, her mind turning over the unexpected encounter. Life had a way of coming full circle. Sometimes the woman who had once dismissed her as unworthy was now seeking her approval, her employment. It wasn't about revenge or satisfaction, Maria reflected. It was about growth for both of them. Veronica learning humility and respect. Maria embracing her own authority and worth. Later that evening, as Maria worked on recipe testing in her apartment kitchen, her phone rang. It was George. "Just checking in," he said. "How's it going with those sauces you were working on?" Maria glanced at the row of small containers on her counter, each labeled and dated. "I think the chipotle cream is perfect now. Still tweaking. The verde." "Can't wait to taste them," George said. "Hey, have you seen the mock-up for your cookbook cover? The publisher just sent it over." "Not yet," Maria said, excitement fluttering in her chest. "Is it good?" "It's perfect. Your name in big letters, Cooking for the King of Country as the title. They used that photo we took in the tour bus kitchen last year. You remember? Where you're laughing at something I said." Maria did remember. It was one of the few photos where she wasn't self-conscious, wasn't trying to fade into the background. Just Maria Gonzalez, chef in her element. "I'll forward it to you," George continued. "Oh, and one more thing. Got a call from Norma. She wants us to come to dinner this weekend. Says she has some ideas for the restaurant she wants to run by us." Us. We. The casual inclusion still surprised Maria sometimes. This partnership that had evolved so naturally from what had once been a strictly employer-employee relationship. "I'd like that," Maria said. "Please, tell her thank you." After they hung up, Maria went to her window and looked out at the Nashville skyline. The lights of the city twinkled back at her, no longer intimidating but inviting, promising. This place that had once been just another tour stop was becoming home. Her phone pinged with an incoming email, the cookbook cover mock-up from George. Maria opened it and caught her breath. There she was, captured in a moment of natural joy surrounded by the tools of her craft. And above the image, her name, Maria Gonzalez, not in small print, not as an afterthought, but prominently displayed, claiming ownership of her story, her recipes, her expertise. In that moment, standing in her Nashville apartment with her cookbook cover on her phone screen and plans for her restaurant kitchen underway, Maria finally allowed herself to believe that this new chapter was real, that she had earned it, that she belonged. She thought of Elena, studying late in her house near Vanderbilt, of Miguel Jr., who had accepted a job offer in Chattanooga just 2 hours away, of Thomas, now considering colleges in Tennessee to be near his family after graduation. And she thought of George Strait, not just as the famous musician she had worked for all these years, but as the person who had seen her worth when others hadn't, who had given her not charity, but opportunity, who had treated her with respect, long before it became necessary or advantageous to do so. Tomorrow would bring more decisions, more challenges, more moments of doubt and triumph. The restaurant would need a name, staff would need to be hired, recipes would need to be finalized. But tonight, Maria Gonzalez stood tall in her kitchen, the place where she had always found her strength, her purpose, her voice. The place where, at long last, she was truly seen. The grand opening of races was scheduled for 7 o'clock, but by 6:15, a line had already formed outside the East Nashville restaurant. Maria watched from the partially open kitchen, her chef's coat crisp and white against her skin, the silver pendant George had given her months ago gleaming at her throat. "Quite a crowd out there," George said, joining her at the pass. Like Maria, he was dressed formally for the occasion. Dark jeans, pressed shirt, and a tailored blazer that managed to be both elegant and approachable, much like the restaurant itself. "Are you nervous?" he asked. Maria considered the question. Was she nervous? Yes, but not in the way she might have expected. This wasn't the fluttering anxiety of self-doubt, but rather the energetic anticipation of an artist about to share her creation with the world. "Ready," she decided. "I'm ready." George smiled. "Me too. Shall we do a final check with the staff?" They moved through the restaurant together, checking in with the service team. Norma had been instrumental in helping Maria assemble the right people, a mix of experienced restaurant professionals and promising newcomers, including 3 culinary students from Nashville State Community College who reminded Maria of herself. At their age, Veronica stood near the hostess stand, reviewing the reservation list one final time. Against all odds, she had proven herself to be a valuable addition to the team during the past 3 months. Her previous retail experience translated well to front-of-house operations, and her determination to prove herself worthy of the second chance Maria had given her resulted in meticulous attention to detail. "Reservation list is confirmed, and we've set aside the special table for Eleanor and her friends," Veronica reported. "And the photographer from the Tennessean will be here at 7:30. Maria nodded her thanks. The local newspaper was doing a feature on the restaurant, focusing on her journey from tour chef to restaurant partner. The publicity still made her uncomfortable, but George had convinced her that her story would inspire others. "Maria!" Elena's voice called out as she entered through the staff door, dressed elegantly for the opening night. "The place looks amazing." Mother and daughter embraced, both feeling the significance of the moment. Elena had watched her mother cook in cramped kitchens for years, always in service to others. Tonight, Maria Gonzalez would present her own vision under her own name. "Miguel and Tomas just texted," Elena reported. "Their flight landed. They're in an Uber and should be here any minute." Having all 3 of her children present for the opening meant everything to Maria. Miguel Jr. had taken time off from his new job in Chattanooga, and Thomas had flown in from San Antonio, where he was finishing his senior year of high school. For one night, her entire family would be together to witness this milestone. As if summoned by their conversation, the staff door opened again, and Miguel Jr. entered, followed by Tomas. More embraces followed, tears glistening in Maria's eyes as she held her sons close. "Mama, this place is incredible," Miguel said, looking around in appreciation. "Dad would have been so proud of you." The mention of their father, gone now, for 17 years, brought a bittersweet smile to Maria's face. Miguel Sr. had always believed in her talent, had encouraged her to dream beyond their small apartment kitchen. How she wished he could see this moment. "He is here with us," she said softly, "in every recipe, in every dish." The family moment was interrupted by Dave, George's longtime tour manager, who poked his head through the door. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who insists on seeing Maria before opening. Says he's family." Before Maria could respond, a familiar figure stepped into view, her brother Carlos, whom she hadn't seen in nearly 5 years. He'd moved to California after a disagreement with Maria about her parenting choices following Miguel Sia's death, and their communication had been sparse ever since. "Carlos?" Maria breathed, shock evident in her voice. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, grey now threading through his once black hair. "Surprise," he said with a hesitant smile. "Your daughter called me, said I shouldn't miss my sister's big night." Eleanor shot her mother an apologetic look, but Maria was already moving toward her brother, arms outstretched. Whatever disagreements had separated them seemed insignificant now, washed away by the tide of this new chapter in her life. "I'm so glad you're here," she said, embracing him tightly. When they separated, Carlos looked around appreciatively. "This is something else, Maria, your own restaurant." "Partnership," she corrected gently. "No," George interjected, joining the family group. "This is very much your restaurant, Maria. I'm just the money man." Introductions were made, and Carlos seemed somewhat starstruck meeting George Strait in person, but his focus quickly returned to his sister. "I brought you something," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Found it when I was cleaning out Mama's things after she moved to the nursing home." He handed Maria a worn, faded recipe card, the edges soft with age and use. Maria recognized it immediately, her grandmother's carne guisada recipe, written in her elegant, old-fashioned script. "I thought it was lost," she whispered, running her fingers over the familiar handwriting. "How did you find it?" "It was tucked inside an old cookbook in the back of Mama's closet," Carlos explained. "I remembered how much it meant to you." Maria clutched the recipe card to her heart. "This was the first thing I ever learned to cook properly. Abuela stood right beside me, guiding my hands." She looked up at her brother, eyes shining. "Thank you, Carlos. This means everything." George checked his watch. 20 minutes until doors open. Should we gather everyone for a quick word?" Maria nodded, carefully tucking the recipe card into her pocket. A piece of her past to carry with her into this future. A reminder of where she had come from, of the cooking traditions passed down through generations that had led her to this moment. The entire staff assembled in the dining room, servers, line cooks, dishwashers, bartenders, forming a circle around Maria and George. These were her people now, her team. Some she had personally selected, like Julio, the young line cook, whose tamales had impressed her during his audition. Others had come recommended by George's extensive network, like Benjamin, the experienced bartender who had created a signature cocktail menu that complemented Maria's food perfectly. "First," George began, "I want to thank each of you for being part of this journey. Opening a restaurant is no small feat, and every person in this circle has contributed to making races a reality." He turned to Maria, giving her the floor. In the past, this moment might have terrified her, speaking to a group, being the center of attention. But now, standing in her restaurant, surrounded by her family and her team, Maria found her voice easily. "Raíces" means roots in Spanish, she said. I chose this name because food is about roots, where we come from, what sustains us, what connects us to each other and to our past. She looked around at the diverse faces watching her. In this kitchen, we honor those roots. Every dish tells a story. My story, your stories, the stories of our families and traditions. She continued, her voice growing stronger. Tonight we share those stories with Nashville. We invite people to our table to experience something authentic and made with care. This isn't just about food, it's about hospitality, about making people feel welcome and valued. That is our mission. A round of applause followed her words. Maria caught Elena's eye and saw her daughter's proud smile, saw Miguel and Tomas exchanging impressed glances. Even Carlos looked moved by her speech. Now, Maria said, gesturing to Benjamin at the bar, a toast before we open the doors. They, bartender, had prepared non-alcoholic sangria for the occasion, distributing glasses to everyone. When all had been served, Maria raised her glass. To roots, she said, and to new beginnings. To roots, the group echoed, glasses clinking together in a chorus of possibility. 7 o'clock arrived, and Veronica opened the doors to welcome the first guests. The restaurant filled quickly with a diverse crowd. Music industry executives. George had invited local food critics, neighborhood residents curious about the new establishment, and friends who had supported Maria's journey. From her position at the kitchen pass, Maria oversaw the flow of dishes, adding final garnishes and ensuring each plate met her exacting standards before it went out to the dining room. The menu was a carefully curated celebration of her culinary heritage, elevated versions of the dishes she had grown up with, alongside inventive new creations that reflected her years of experience cooking across the country. Her signature dish, Miguel's carne guisada, named for her late husband, and based on her grandmother's recipe, was the evening's most requested item. Each time an order came in, Maria felt a connection to her past, to the women who had cooked before her, who had passed down their knowledge from one generation to the next. Midway through the evening, George guided a distinguished-looking couple into the kitchen. Maria, I'd like you to meet James Beard, award-winning chef Antonio Martinez, and his wife, food writer Lucia Martinez. Maria wiped her hands on her apron, momentarily flustered. Antonio Martinez was a culinary legend, one of the first Mexican-American chefs to receive international recognition for elevating traditional Mexican cuisine. Chef Gonzalez, Antonio said, extending his hand. It's an honor to meet you. George has been telling us about your work for years. My work? Maria echoed, confused. But I was just a tour chef. There is no just about being any kind of chef, Antonio corrected gently. George sent me videos of you cooking in that tour bus kitchen, creating restaurant-quality meals with limited space and equipment. That takes skill and creativity that many classically trained chefs lack. Lucia nodded in agreement. We've eaten at the most acclaimed restaurants in the world, Chef Gonzalez. But what you've created here tonight, this food with soul and history, this is what truly matters in cuisine. Maria felt a surge of emotion, hearing her food described this way by people she had admired from afar. Thank you, she managed to say. That means more than you know. As the Martinez couple returned to their table, Julio appeared at Maria's side. Chef, Table 7 is asking to speak with you. They said the enchiladas made them cry. For a brief moment, Maria feared something was wrong with the dish, but Julio's grin told her otherwise. Good tears, he clarified. The grandmother says they taste exactly like the ones her mother used to make in Oaxaca. Maria made her way to Table 7, where 3 generations of a family sat together. The elderly woman reached for Maria's hand when she approached. Mi hija, she said in Spanish, her eyes bright with emotion. How did you know? How did you capture the taste of my childhood? I haven't experienced these flavors since my mother passed 30 years ago." Maria sat down beside her, the chaos of the busy restaurant fading away as they connected over shared culinary memories. They spoke of specific chilies and cooking techniques, of the particular way masa should feel between your fingers, of grandmothers who cooked by instinct rather than measurement. Time slipped away as they exchanged stories, unified by the common language of food and heritage. When Maria finally returned to the kitchen, she found her team operating smoothly under Julio's guidance. She took a moment to watch them work, the choreographed dance of a well-functioning kitchen, each person focused on their task yet aware of the larger collaboration. George appeared at her side. "Everything okay?" Maria nodded, smiling. "Perfect, just taking it all in." He followed her gaze to the bustling kitchen. "You've built something special here, Maria. Not just the restaurant, the team, the culture." "We built it," she corrected. "Partners," he agreed, bumping his shoulder gently against hers in a gesture of camaraderie. As the evening progressed, Maria moved between kitchen and dining room, connecting with guests and supporting her team. The restaurant hummed with conversation and laughter, the warm lighting casting a golden glow over the exposed brick walls and handcrafted wooden tables. By 11 o'clock, the last desserts had been served, the final cocktails poured. As the restaurant gradually emptied, Maria's family gathered at a corner table, joined by George and Norma. They raised glasses in a private toast, celebrating not just the successful opening night, but the journey that had brought them here. "I have something for you," George said, sliding a small package across the table to Maria. She unwrapped it carefully to find a beautifully framed photograph. Not of the restaurant or the food, but of Maria herself in the tour bus kitchen from years ago. She was captured in profile, completely absorbed in her cooking, a look of serene concentration on her face. "Norma took this about 12 years ago," George explained. "I've always kept it in my office. It reminds me of what passion looks like, someone completely in their element, doing what they were born to do." Maria studied the photograph, seeing herself through different eyes, not as the invisible woman behind the scenes, but as an artist practicing her craft with dedication and love. "I thought it might be nice to hang in your office here," George continued, a reminder of where this all began. Maria's journey from that tour bus kitchen to races hadn't been direct or easy. There had been struggles and sacrifices, moments of doubt and determination. Looking around the table at her children, her brother, her friends and partners, she felt the full circle of that journey. Not ending here, but beginning anew, with greater possibility. After the others had gone, Maria remained in the empty restaurant, savoring the quiet after the evening's excitement. She walked through the dining room, straightening a chair here, adjusting a napkin there, feeling the satisfaction of creation. In the kitchen, her kitchen, she ran her hand along the counter where she had plated hundreds of dishes that night. The space still held the lingering aromas of the evening service, toasted chilies, simmered broths, caramelized sugars, scents that told the story of the meal that had unfolded here. At the back of the kitchen, against the wall, was a small shelf that George had installed at her request. On it sat 3 photographs, one of her late husband Miguel, one of her 3 children together at Elena's high school graduation, and now, in the center, the newly framed photo of Maria in the tour bus kitchen, past and present side by side, the woman she had been and the chef she had become. Connected by passion, by persistence, by the unwavering belief in the power of food to nourish not just the body, but the spirit. Maria Gonzalez turned off the kitchen lights and made her way to the exit. Tomorrow would bring another day of cooking, of creating, of sharing her roots with those who came to her table. But tonight, as she locked the door of races behind her, she carried with her the profound satisfaction of a dream realized. Not despite life's challenges, but because of them. She had been seen. She had been heard. She had been valued, and now she had come home.